Hi everybody, my name is Myung Moon and welcome to iHome Church. This morning I would like to speak on the theme of the Unbroken Spirit. Yesterday my husband and I were so excited because iTunes just released a recording of Perfect Circle's concert. And it's one of those bands that we enjoy immensely. And, the concert was wonderful with their original songs and a couple cover songs like Imagine and What's Going On. But when you listen not only to the songs but follow along with the lyrics on the screen, you realize that the band is kind of expressing a message to their fans or to the world at large. The pop culture in many respects has a pulse on the sentiment of people at a particular time in history. And very much the sentiment that is conveyed through their concert and through their song and their lyrics is that, we've kind of come at a crossroads when it comes to our humanity as we know it. And there are so many things going on, so many crises, so many difficulties, and so many fear of the unknown. And we certainly have the capacity to blow our world over many times. So we're dealing with, the relationship of, do we choose the road that leads to destruction, or do we choose a road that leads to love and to world peace? And sometimes that decision is not very clear, and sometimes it's a very difficult one to make because so much of our emotional triggers are wrapped up in our decision making process. But when I think about what is going on all around the world, the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, the conflict between Russia and Crimea, and of course dealing with the crisis with ISIS, and just the overriding fear that we have of what is going on. What is our future going to be? Will we have a future? Are we basically going to end up destroying our own civilization as we know it? Or is there a way for us to find a way out of all of this conflict, all of these trials and tribulations, and really become a one family of God that we long to see in this world? When I think about this, it really reminds me of a movie that I saw recently together with my husband. The movie was produced and directed by Angelina Jolie, and it's called Unbroken. And it tells a beautiful story of this guy named Louie Zamperini. And, he's kind of like a troubled young teen, but, his older brother sees that he has a certain ability, which is his ability to run, and therefore really kind of develops his skills and helps him become an Olympic athlete. And he ends up he qualifies for the Summer Olympics at Berlin, Germany in 1936, and ends up, coming in 8th. And in the final lap of a 5,000 meter race, he sets a new record by running it in 56 seconds. And, of course, this young man is incredibly promising and, coming from a difficult background, but he's made something of himself. And then the war hits. And so he gets involved in the war, gets shot down in the middle of the Pacific, and basically survives on a raft with with two of his mates, and they start off it being 3 of them as survivors of this horrific crash into the sea, but only 2 survive. And after 47 days on the open sea, they get picked up by, unfortunately, the Japanese Navy. And so from the euphoria of being saved, they're immediately sent into one of those camps run by the Japanese, and he ends up becoming a POW. And so you see this man, struggling through all of these trials and tribulations and different crises that life is kind of bringing forth onto his table. But the incredible thing about this guy is that regardless of where he is, and his character starts developing when he is confronted with a crisis. And when they first find themselves adrift on the open sea, he immediately gets to work as to how he's going to partition out certain bars of chocolates that they have so that they can make it last. He starts thinking about how to set aside water so that 3 of them can survive as long as they possibly can. But there's this one guy, his name is Mark, who basically starts off on this journey of hopefully being rescued adrift on the open sea with the words, we're all going to die, we're all going to die. And kind of as a self-fulfilling prophecy, because in a way, Mac's spirit has already been broken. He does not last 47 days until the rescue from the Japanese Navy. He passes away after 33 days on the open sea. And you realize the importance of the spirit. Because when you have decided, or when we have decided to give up on life, or to give up on our spirit, then we slowly see ourselves waste away, like the way we saw Mac waste away on the open sea. But the difference between Mac and Louie and his buddy Phil is that at least Louie and Phil, they're not going to give up. They're going to put up a great fight, and they are going to survive. And it's this indomitable, insurmountable, even though they're faced with insurmountable odds, it's their indomitable spirit that just refuses to be broken, which helps them survive. And not just on the open sea, but also doing their years as a POW. And, because he is an Olympic athlete, the person nicknamed Bird in the movie, he takes a special interest to this Olympic athlete, and he's the one who is in control of this particular camp in Tokyo, and just gives him a really, really hard time. And you're kind of wondering, there's obviously a certain amount of jealousy in that this guy is an Olympic athlete, but now that he is in his care, in the Bird's care, Bird is going to make him pay because this Olympic athlete is his enemy. And so this dynamic between the Bird, the Japanese Bird, this guy who controls the camp, and Louie, develops into an incredible dramatic scene where couple of years into his POW detainment, this guy Bird gets promoted and sent to a different camp. But lo and behold, the Allied bombings result in the camp that Louie is in to be moved to a different camp. And unfortunately, Louie finds out that the other camp that he is moved to happens to be the camp that the Bird is in. And so here is Louie again, faced with the enemy. And again, the Bird, seeing Louie as the enemy, gives him an incredibly difficult time and gives him hell, basically. And even though he sprains his ankle, the drama of the movie climaxes in this one scene where the Bird, the Japanese guy, is basically saying, hold up this huge log, and if you drop it, has ordered the other soldiers to shoot him. And so here is this guy standing there, trying to stand there with a sprained ankle, holding up this incredibly heavy log. But he absolutely refuses to be defeated. In essence, his spirit, or his indomitable spirit, just exudes and comes through on the screen. And you cannot help but be moved that even in a location like this, unbearable and incredible, POW camp, this guy's spirit just absolutely refuses to be broken. And so when the bird realizes that there is just no way in hay that this Louie spirit will be broken, he just ends up attacking Louie and throwing him down and punching him and really kind of showing his own weakness. And the one that is defeated is not the one that's being pummeled by Bird, but the one that has been defeated is the Japanese caretaker of this camp, because he realizes that Louis' spirit is unbreakable. And so it's an incredible movie in a sense that it reminds us, that regardless of where life puts us, as long as we have this ability to not let things break our spirit, we can survive. And throughout the movie, they give you wonderful phrases to hang on to. His older brother says, well, if you can take it, you can make it. And he says this to Louis while Louis is preparing for the Olympics. And even in the POW camp, Louis shares with his different prisoners, well, if you can take it, you can make it. And there's this kind of like overriding feeling or a sense that as long as you can take whatever God or Satan or, these horrible people put on your plate, that you can make it. But the incredible thing about Louis is that not only does he take it, and not only does he make it, in that he survives and he is resilient through all of these trials and tribulations, but he actually decides to do something that's incredible. After the end of the war, he goes back to his family, gets married to his sweetheart, has 2 children. But later in life, he comes back to Japan and actually runs the relay, bearing the torch, the Olympic torch, in Nagano, Tokyo, near the very place where he was held captive as POW. And not only did he run the Olympic torch relay, but he goes on and he becomes this proactive person reaching out to the very people that caused him incredible suffering. And, he wants to make amends. He wants to reach out to them and let them know that he's harboring no resentment, no feelings of hatred. In fact, he wanted to convey his love to his enemies. And that's what makes Louis' life so profound. And that's what makes the life of Father, the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, incredibly profound. Because here was Louis at the prison of war. But my father, throughout his lifetime, has been incarcerated 6 times. And through it all, he conveyed and he showed, he exemplified this unbreakable spirit. And he wasn't just surviving just to take revenge on his enemies. A couple of the POWs who were detained in this camp said to Louis, our best revenge is to survive. But my father wasn't surviving these prison sentences just to pay back or to pay back in terms of revenge or feelings of hatred. But he was surviving because he knew that his mission was to love and really create a beautiful family. And so Jesus brought us this wonderful, the golden rule, to go out of our way to learn to love our enemy. But our true father, the true parent, takes it a step further by saying, love your enemy. And don't stop there. Don't just stop at loving, but go further. Love them as a member of your family. That's why when true parents come, they bring this incredible gift of the blessing. Don't just, love the German people, even if they've done you harm. As Americans, don't just love the Germans as the other, but love them as a member of your own family. That's why Reverend Moon encouraged all the nations of the world, all the children, from different backgrounds to really kind of come together in this beautiful international marriage, because through the bonds of marriage, you can overcome all of these resentment and, many, many years of suffering that people just have an incredible difficulty overcoming. But through the bonds of love, one at a time, one relation at a time, one family at a time, these difficulties are resolved and brought into care and brought into a life, an embrace of true love that can heal the world as we know it. And so we realized that when Louie Zamperini, kind of having gone through all of this, he becomes, through the silver screen, a hero of sorts. And a hero is somebody that goes through incredible difficulty, but somehow becomes victorious. And in my ears, when I hear the word hero, I hear two words. I hear the word he, and I hear the words ro. In a way, the hero has this incredible responsibility to row through all the different trials and tribulations that life throws his way, but still continue to row and become victorious. And I see that in Louie through the movie The Unbroken, and I see that in my father through his life example, and I see that in my mother in her indomitable spirit to never give up. So we have this incredible example of true parents. And so what we need to do in times of difficulty, when we feel broken because we feel betrayed, when we feel broken because there's just so much hatred in our hearts, or when we feel broken because we feel deceived, we have to, in a way, reconnect to the source, reconnect to our the source of where our spirit comes from. And that is God, our Heavenly Parent, and our true parents. And when we can do that, then in a way, our true parents are saying, then I will give you the crown of glory. In a way, true parents are the ones wearing the crown of glory because they have overcome incredible and difficult, unbearable situations. And so I want to share this poem that my father wrote when he was 16 years old, and it's called The Crown of Glory. He writes, "When I doubt people, I feel pain. When I judge people, it is unbearable. When I hate people, there is no value to my existence. Yet if I believe, I am deceived. If I love, I am betrayed. Suffering and grieving tonight, my head in my hands. Am I wrong? Yes, I am wrong. Even though we are deceived, still believe. Though we are betrayed, still forgive. Love completely even those who hate you. Wipe your tears away and welcome with a smile those who know nothing but deceit, and those who betray without regret. Oh, master the pain of loving. Look at my hands. Place your hands on my chest. My heart is bursting, such agony. But when I loved those who acted against me, I brought victory. If you have done the same thing, I will give you the crown of glory." God gave Reverend Moon and true parents the crown of glory because they have loved what is unlovable. And they have kept on going with this unbreakable spirit. And what Father is saying is, look, when I loved those who acted against me, I brought victory. Meaning, it is all of our individual responsibility to love those who acted against us, and then you will bring the victory. And when you do that, then true parents will place that crown of victory in your hands. And so what Father is saying is, it doesn't matter what the world throws your way. Keep on going and keep on loving, and love your enemy as a member of your family. And that is how we begin to change the world and see the world as one family under God. And isn't that what we want to create in our lifetime? That is something that I want to do, and I know that that is something that you want to do. So don't get lost in the details. Don't get lost in the conflict. Don't get lost in the trials and tribulations. Keep your and our spirits unbroken. Unbroken to the source, which is God and true parents. And remember this beautiful poem that my father wrote when he was a 16-year-old boy. And this poem is basically how he lived his life. And that's why he's an incredible man. That's why he is my hero. And that's why he and my mother can stand in the position as the true parents of all mankind. So with that thought in mind, have a great week, brothers and sisters, and thank you. If you have any questions and comments, please leave them below the video or go to insurmountable and use the contact form. And don't forget to subscribe to our email list and give us a like and share our videos. And if you would like to contribute to our work here at iHome Church, just click on the donate button. Thank you. Bye-bye.